Yes, now this is a story, a couple of stories, really, that I know are very, very close to the hearts of most of our viewers and listeners. Today is the 6th anniversary of the suicide bombing in which 22 people were killed at the Manchester Arena. The attack happened at the end of an Ariana Grande concert, and among the victims were 6 children. A new report says that many of those people involved are yet to get proper psychological help. But today is also the 10th anniversary of another devastating attack that caused utter revulsion. Fusilier Lee Rigby was brutally murdered in broad daylight in Woolwich by 2 Islamist extremists. I'm asking what lessons have been learnt from the death of Lee Rigby. Joining me now is combat veteran Trevor Colt. And Trevor has experience of fighting jihadis on their home turf, as it were, abroad, Iraq, Afghanistan. And Trevor, I'm just keen to get your view on your initial feelings anyway, as we, of course, remember Lee Rigby today and the legacy of his death, and whether or not you feel enough has been done in the wake of that to clamp down on Islamist extremism.
First of all, Patrick, thank you for having me on. I appreciate coming on your show all the time. Well, today's a quite sad day in a way. Obviously, the 10th anniversary of the death, should I say the murder, not the death, the murder of Lee Rigby on the streets of London. And has there been improvements? I don't think there has been, Patrick. You know, at the end of the day, we have to look at what's been happening over the last 5 or 6 years. We, the UK, have taken in lots and lots of people coming from Islamic countries into our neighbourhoods. And you've got to remember that a lot of serving soldiers, once they leave, live in and around London. Has there been an increase in CCTV? There's certainly been an increase in mosques. There's certainly been an increase in Sharia law in and around London. And a lot of the police officers don't go into certain parts of London. So if anything, we are going backwards rather than forwards. Now, today might be the anniversary of the murder of Lee Rigby. But 35 years ago, there was also the same brutal murder of Corporal Derek Woods and David Howes in Belfast, where our own government watched that murder from a helicopter and filmed it. So if anything, we aren't moving forward. We're actually stuck in like a bit of a time warp. So it's not looking good for those that come back from combat theatres and suffer PTSD. But we have to look at PTSD. A lot of people in London suffered from all the different terror attacks coming back from theatre. But how are we meant to solve it in London when the London mayor himself suffers PTSD on behalf of everybody else's trauma?
OK, and Trevor, as well, when I just look at how shorter sentences we often give to Islamist terrorists and the fact that our prisons appear to be almost training grounds for jihadis these days, I think you've got more chance of becoming a jihadi in prison than you have of being rehabilitated. I look at it and I just can't help but wonder whether we're sitting on a little bit of a time bomb here.
Patrick, we certainly are. I grew up in an era where our parents used to tell us crime doesn't pay. But quite clearly in the last 5 or 6 years, we've seen that, for instance, the 2 evil people that murdered Lee Rigby received legal aid. Taxpayers helped them fight their case in court. Yet I see daily veterans that are wounded who can't get legal aid to prosecute our own Ministry of Defence. So crime certainly pays at the minute, Patrick.
Yeah, and just on that as well, you know, we have a huge amount of veterans in this country, and a lot of them fall on hard times for whatever reason, whether they're suffering from mental health issues, physical issues as a result of injuries as well, just life stuff as well, you know, ordinary people falling on hard times. And I just feel as though we don't do enough for them, Trevor. And look, I've spoken a lot about Islamist terrorism, of course, and I don't really want to, you know, turn Lee Rigby's memory or whatever singularly into, you know, something to try to shine a light on Islamist terrorism. It's hard not to. We could maybe flip it on its head a bit, Trevor, and talk about what more should be done for our veterans, really, and maybe that's a way of honouring him. As we look 10 years on from his murder there, can we do more, for example, to house homeless veterans, to get them mental health care? I mean, that surely should be something that everyone should be championing. That would be a way to mark this very tragic event, perhaps.
Patrick, first of all, that's a fantastic way to do it. I know, and I don't speak to him that often now, but I do watch the work that Johnny Mercer is doing. And His hands are still slightly tied, but he is doing his best. Now, if we want to mark the 10th anniversary of Lee Rigby's murder, then the best thing to do, and I will say this, his mother, Lynn, does tremendous work. I've spoken to her in the past. But Lee Rigby's son, Jack, at the minute, is trying to raise £1,000 for every year his father's been murdered. And so far, he's raised nearly £45,000. So it would be great if all your viewers were to get onto the Just Giving page of Jack Rigby and try and help him raise as much money for Scotty's Little Soldiers, which the money's going towards help bereaved families of soldiers. So that's a great way to mark his anniversary.
No, absolutely. Look, Trevor, thank you very, very much for coming on and talking about this and for sticking your head above the parapet on numerous different issues there. There's Trevor Colt there, who's a combat veteran. Like I said, he's seen active service in like jihadi heartlands, as it were. I remember at the time there being outrage, obviously, about the murder of Lee Rigby at the hand of those two vile jihadis. And it did seem to die down rather quickly, and I spoke at length at the top of this hour about whether or not we are doing enough to make sure that situations like this don't happen again. We look at the Manchester Arena bombing, for example. That chap, Salman Abedi, was on a terror watch list, was allowed to slip through the net. His brother fled the country. He could never face justice. There were warning signs there that were missed left, right,